As they say, you on camera?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Good to go.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is, I start with my given name is Gregory Odell Coltman. Born in 1945. That would make me 60 years old, 61 years old. Excuse me. I'm a child of the 60s. I call it my decade of death. Those 10 years aged me a lot. And John Kerry made a statement last month about if you don't study, you'll find yourself in a combat zone. I bear witness to that fact, is that I was a student at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1965 and 66. And in 1967, I was put on academic probation, and I was partying a little bit too much. And I found myself drafted in the United States Army. I was drafted in 1967, July 17th. In 1967, and I knew at that point that my life was going to take a drastic change and a radical turn. I did my basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then I did my advanced infantry training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. From there, I found myself in the Republic of South Vietnam in January of 1968. I think it was January 8th of 1968. And January 13th, the Vietnamese New Year, which is commonly called Tet, had exploded throughout the country. My experience in the military is 11B40, which is a combat infantryman, light weapon specialist, plus demolition specialist. And me being of a small stature, I also had the dubious distinction of becoming one of the called, I don't like to use the word tunnel rat. I'll just tell you, I was a ferret, a tunnel ferret, or a tunnel rat, and went into tunnels. And scarred my life forever. Vietnam really changed my life in the fact that my first encounter with a Muslim, as far as a foreign Muslim, was in Vietnam, and I'll explain that later. But I had the opportunity to travel extensively throughout Vietnam. The unit I was with was the 1st of the 14th Infantry, Bravo Company, 3rd Brigade, 3rd Battalion of the 25th Infantry, and then the 25th Infantry got sent home in May, and we became attached to the 4th Infantry Division up in the Central Highlands. At that time, the 25th Infantry was base camped in Duc Pho, which is in the southern part, just before you get to the Delta on the coast. When I landed in Vietnam in 1968, I landed in Cam Ranh Bay. This is how crazy it was. Cam Ranh Bay is on the coast, on the South China Sea. From there, the unit was in, I had to go to Clay Coup, which is all the way up cross country in the Central Highlands. And from there, I had to go back to Duck Foe. And that was back on south. And from Duck Foe, I wound up in Chulai, right outside of Chulai. And LZ Liz, LZ Ross, LZ Uptight, and LZ Baldy taking over the area operation for LZ Baldy was the 101st Airborne Landing Zone. I have a lot of people, when they talk to a combat vet, they really don't talk about these things, the things that you see in combat or the things that you see in a firefight. You really want to forget them because these things have a tendency to stick with you forever. I think the sights that you see. Anyone who's been in combat knows that it is controlled mayhem, controlled confusion. It's not a pretty sight, and sometimes it can last a few minutes. Sometimes it can last a couple of hours. It all depends on who you fight. My encounter was with both the Viet Cong, which is basically a guerrilla force, and when we moved to the Central Highlands, fought the North Vietnamese regular army. They had uniforms, patches, they was an army. Nathan Victor, or the North Vietnamese, I have given them much respect, because they fought for their country. And being drafted, you really don't have that urge to fight for your country, but you fight for survival so that you be able to come home. And there's no way that I could make it through combat or a firefight or any kind of campaign without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brought me through, so that I know that I have a purpose here. And realizing that my Allah is the only one that brought me through that. You can't imagine the horror that you see in combat. These are stories that people really don't even talk about, you know. Seeing body parts, limbs, seeing people disappear. I mean, basically evaporate right in front of your eyes. It's something that's pornography. You want to talk about something being pornographic? Combat is pornography. It warps the mind, it warps the soul, and the only way that you can heal is through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I achieved the rank of E5, hard sergeant, a hard 5, sergeant, buck sergeant, and that was through attrition. And when I say attrition, is that after one firefight, an opportunity of 33 men, there was only 13 of us left standing. And I was the ranking person standing, so I became the platoon sergeant at that time. And this was only 4 months in country. Spent a whole year in that. And a lot of people don't understand that this country was torn apart by its opposition to the war. Those people who were protesting the war, those people who were for the war. And in this decade of the 60s, in that decade of the 60s, you had death. John F. Kennedy was killed, Robert Kennedy was killed, Malcolm X was killed, Martin Luther King was killed, As a matter of fact, I was in a firefight on April 4th when Martin Luther King was killed. And it's the point that, what are you fighting for? Why are you here? What's the purpose of being here? They're killing your leaders, they're killing your people. Why are you over here fighting? This is what was over the loudspeakers that the Viet Cong and the Vietnamese would say over loudspeakers. Asking a black man, why are you here? Back to the reality of the Muslim. I was guarding, after one campaign of firefight, I was guarding a bridge in Bang Sang, which is on the coast. And it was an area in which the 173rd had vacated, and we had taken over their area operation. And in the process of guarding this bridge, this young Vietnamese came up to me, and I asked him for his ID card, his ID papers, so that he could cross the bridge. And he kept saying to me, me, you, same, same. Me, you, same, same. Me, you, same, same. And I kept looking at him and said, what are you talking about, man? Let me see your paperwork. Let me see your paperwork. And when I looked at his paperwork, it said, Abdul Rahman. And he was Vietnamese. And I looked at him. Now, mind you, I had no understanding of what Islam was in the 60s at that time. As far as the only thing I knew, and basically probably the only thing that he knew, that he thought that every black man in America was a black Muslim. And that's why he was saying, me, you, same, same. Me, behind the Elijah Muhammad situation, he probably got the information that every black man in America was a black Muslim. And this is why he kept saying, me, you, same, same. And it never really connected with me. I just played it off. It was something that I really didn't even think about until I got home and I started hearing about Sunni Orthodox Islam. And then it connected to me. Then I thought about it. I said, that's what he was talking about. And he probably thought that every black man in America was a black Muslim or had some type of Islam in their heart. But that was my first encounter with a foreign Muslim at that time that I can recollect. I probably had encounters before, but that one stood out in my mind. All the way across the ocean, come in contact with a Muslim, a Vietnamese extract, Asian Muslim. So I was like, okay. Then it really, I started to understand. But during my tour of duty, I only did one tour of duty. One was enough. Because I was drafted, I only did 2 years in the Army. And I didn't want to go back and be back in combat anymore. They asked me to re-up, but there's no way that I was going to do that. There's no way that I was going to fight for Uncle Sam anymore. In the process of being in country, I contacted Agent Orange, which is the result of my situation now. And 20 to 30 years later, the effects of the dioxin poisoning, which is Agent Orange is dioxin poisoning, boiled down to that I have a degenerative bone damage.
This is why you walk with the
Right.
cane.
This is why I walk with the cane now. Is that what happened was that I caught a piece of shrapnel in my neck and during the wound, and now the bones and the vertebrae in my neck started to deteriorate, and it started to collapse on my spinal cord. And the only way that they could relieve the pressure was that I had to go in and had C3, C4, and C5 taken out, and I have a plate and 4 titanium screws, 2 at the top and 2 in the back, and fuse the bones together so that, because it was collapsing on my spinal cord, and if I hadn't had it done, I would have been in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. fighting Uncle Sam now so that I can get compensated for that in the VA, and it's been a struggle. But during my hospital stay, I was in a halo. I had if anybody know what a halo is that you have, it's a brace, it's a cast. You have 4 posts, you have a ring, and you have 4 posts, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and they screw in titanium screws to hold it down. And it's a ring, so it immobilizes your neck so that they heal. So, because I couldn't move my neck. If I moved my neck, basically I had a broken neck. They broke my neck, and then they put it back together again. But that's from the dioxin poison. In 1972, after much contemplation and searching for why God Almighty saved me from the combat situation, in 1972, in July, same year I got drafted, same month I got drafted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw fit to enlighten me to Islam and brought me into the fold of Islam at Yasin Basong, 52 Herkimer Place. And from there, I've been Muslim. My name is Hamim Abdul Salaam. I took the name Hamim Abdul Salaam. And you get some type of peace from making salat and understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings you through these situations that I've been in, and especially the combat. When I look back upon it, and the friends that I lost, and the companions that I lost in combat, and it's a strange thing is that you have to lose that mentality of not getting close to someone. In combat, you don't get close to anybody because every moment you're on edge. Every moment you can be taken, you can't take for granted that you're going to be here. And you're on edge all day long. And that constant grind of being on edge, day in, nighttime, in the daytime, takes its toll on an individual. And you become old, you become weary, but also you become wise because you have to take in your surroundings and you have to be on edge at all times. At all times, because you don't know what Allah has in store for you. And so you have to be on edge. You have to be wary. You have to be vigilant. And through these years, trying to understand why. I have some type of understanding why, but it's very hard to explain. It's very hard to explain. But there are things, I guess this is untold stories, so there's some things that the determination of the Vietnamese people is something that amazed me. And you can see the determination in if you go ever see a film called The Tunnels of Cu Chi. There was an extensive tunnel work. I'm talking rooms underground. I'm talking miles of tunnels, and where they would be able to ambush you here and